Page off.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So I'm here to finally do my favorite books of 2024. There's a lot of them. I did not count them. I'm going in the order in which I read them. I kind of just went through my Goodreads and whatever book sort of took my fancy, I put on this list. You know, if I remembered what it was about and I really enjoyed it, that's pretty much my whole criteria. I did not feel like whittling it down, so we're just going to go with it. So the first one I have here is The Mother-in-Law by Sally Hepworth. I had not read this one before, although I've heard of it. I weirdly had no interest in it. It's literally about Lucy and her mother-in-law Diane and their complicated relationship. Diane is found dead, and there's like a suicide note, and she says she was diagnosed with cancer, but the autopsy shows there's no cancer, and in fact it shows traces of poison. So they start to suspect Lucy, because Lucy and Diane had such a difficult relationship, and so we kind of see their dynamics. And yeah, I didn't think it was going to be that good, but it was. And it's really hard to describe why it was, but it was really good. And very believable, like the way their dynamic is. It was a really great read. I can see why it's one of her best. I did not like what's that one? Darling Girls. It was her newest one. I was not a fan of that one as much. It was okay, but nothing to write home about. Next, we have a favorite of many, The Frozen River by Ariel Lahan. I think the one who read it most recently was Amanda from Book Lover Amanda from the people I follow on BookTube. I know others have read it throughout the year and talked about it like crazy. I did not write them down, though, just because I read it so far into the beginning of the year that I stopped paying attention to who read it after. But yeah, this is May 1789. Martha Ballard is summoned to examine a dead body and determine the cause of death. As a local midwife, she has a diary that kind of keeps record of everything that happens, deaths, births, and all of that. So she's kind of like people's medical expert. And in the diary, she also documented the details of an alleged rape that occurred 4 months earlier. And that man, one of the men who has been accused of that is one of the ones that's dead, or is the one that's dead. So she's realizing these two things are linked, and she's kind of soon in the middle of a trial, or what constituted a trial back then. But yeah, Martha Ballard really did exist, so this is based on a true story. There's also another book that's based on her life, apparently. Martha Ballard really did have a diary, so this other book was written in the 90s. It's called A Midwife's Tale. I'm going to be interested in reading it and kind of comparing the two. But yeah, she really did live and was a midwife, and I really loved her, at least as far as how this author portrayed her. Honestly, if she had lived in the 21st century, excuse my language, but she would have been like, F the patriarchy. She would have been that kind of woman. I mean, it was wild, the things that the way she told men off in this book. And the best part was that her husband was like completely behind her, so he was not patriarchal in the least. He was kind of quiet, actually. I would say she was the leader of that marriage. But yeah, I enjoyed that he like supported her no matter what. And so yeah, I love this book. Then we have The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. I first heard about this one from Gloria Z. Thompson. She didn't actually like this book, but I did. And so did Jen from The Bookish Blonde. So we're both really excited for her next book that's coming out sometime this month. I'm not sure if it's going to be similar to this one, but in this one we have June Farrow, who her grandmother just passed away, and she wants to end her family's century-old curse that caused her mother to go crazy and disappear. But and so June starts hearing voices and seeing things that aren't there. So she thinks she's going crazy too. And it's not a curse, for the record. This book has some elements of time travel, so you take with that what you will. There's also a little bit of romance in this. But I consider this more of a family story, really. So, yeah, it was interesting to read about. I really enjoyed it. It's hard to talk about this one without spoiling it too much. Next we have The Women by Kristen Hanna. I think everybody I know has read this one. The ones I wrote down are Becca Books and Bujo, Book Lover Amanda, April from April Overall, Gloria, Lindsay's Little Library, Sarah's Nightstand. That's all I got. I think everybody, is a Kristen Hanna fan. This is about 20-year-old nursing student Frankie McCrath, goes into the Vietnam War after her brother. He passes away in the war. And so she goes after him. And her father is not a big fan. He is definitely for the patriarchy, and he is not a fan of his daughter going into war, which she did not realize, since they were such a patriotic family. Like, they have a war wall and everything where, like, all the heroes in the family are on the wall, but, so she thinks he's going to be super proud, and he's not. So that's the beginning of her trauma, and soon she realizes there's more trauma ahead. And then when she gets back from the war, the way people treat the veterans is horrific. And the way that they would not give her psychological help, and they didn't even believe that she was there because she was a woman, was pretty appalling. So it was a good book, but it was not an enjoyable book, but it still made my favorite books because it was well written. She also made some questionable decisions in her relationships that I could have done without, but what can you do? Next, we have another time travel. This one is an Amish time travel. It's called Until Then by Sydney Woodsmall. This is about Old Order Amish couple Celeste and Vin Lance. They are Old Order Amish. He is a carpenter, but he loves to draw, and he's constantly making forbidden portraits. Then one day, Simone finds portraits of herself and their kids. I mean, Celeste. I don't know why I called her Simone. And her and Vin have a fight, and he takes off to his favorite mountain, where he disappears into the 1820s. And obviously Celeste doesn't know where he is, so she thinks that he ditched her for his portraits. And we see him kind of getting in with the community of Quakers and helping enslaved people get to freedom, which was nice to see. So yeah, it was a good read. It was an interesting twist. I'd never heard of Amish time travel, but I hope that more will be written someday. Next, we have two more Amish series. We have the Kate Burkholder series by Linda Castillo. I had first heard about this from Lindsay's Little Library. I don't think she ever finished the series, but she enjoyed it. And then I heard about it again through the Amish and April girls, Sarah the Bookish Knitter, and Lizzie from Lizzie Faye Loves Books. So the first one is called Sworn to Silence. I'm barely on book 8, so I haven't finished it. But it basically takes place in Painter's Mill, Ohio. And Kate Burkholder, she was previously Amish, and now she is in law enforcement. And, well, she's actually chief of police. And, yeah. Her Amish roots and, well, the fact that she studies law enforcement, make her a good candidate to straddle both worlds. So it's an interesting read to see her kind of having to struggle with that, because she's kind of one of them, but she's kind of not, and they kind of resent her for leaving the faith, but they also trust her because they know her, whereas they don't trust any other cops. So it's interesting. Then we have the Amish Candy Shop Mysteries series by Amanda Flower. Heard about them from these same people. The first one is Assaulted Caramel by Amanda Flower. They're about Bailey King. She is a famous chocolatier in New York City, but her grandmother calls her that her grandfather's heart condition has gotten worse, so she comes back home to Harvest, Ohio, where her grandfather gets targeted for a murder, and we go from there. There's different cozy mysteries. So, yeah. Then we have an author that I like. I couldn't decide which book to put for her, so I just said Christina Suzanne Nelson in general. I love the 4 books that I read by her. Shaped by the Waves, More Than We Remember. I can't remember the other 2. Her newest one. Anyway, I loved all her books. I need to get some water. Then we have My Stepmother's Secret by Emma Robinson. This one is about a woman who basically her husband messes with all her life saving. All of their money is gone, essentially. He's like, and so she has to go home back to her father's house, but her father's dead, and the one that lives there is her stepmother. This woman owns the house, but her stepmother is allowed to live there after her father dies, and she kind of hates her stepmother, but she needs her stepmother for shelter because they're broke. So it's kind of about their relationship and the secret that stepmother is keeping. She's not as bad as she sounds. Honestly, I liked her from the beginning, which is why this book was so good, because I was like, okay, you're just mean to this poor woman. And I don't know. I just thought this was evil stepdaughter. She wasn't as bad as I thought, the stepdaughter, but she also has 2 kids who love the stepmom, which she can't stand because she doesn't like her. It's a whole thing. But once you understand her more, you kind of feel the same way I do. Next we have some tearjerkers. We have The Last Letter by Rebecca Yarros. I heard about this one through Lindsay's Little Library. And if you notice that Rebecca Yarros' name sounds familiar, it is because it is. She wrote Fourth Wing, which is a dragon fantasy series that everybody's obsessed with. Anyway, but this is not a fantasy book. This is a total tearjerker romance. So this is about Beckett and Ella. Ella is raising twins by herself, and her brother Ryan is deployed with Beckett. The book pretty much starts out with Beckett and Ella writing to each other, only they don't know, or she doesn't. He's writing as kind of an anonymous person, or with a different name. Just, I forget why that is exactly, but anyway, Ryan passes away and asks him in this letter to go and take care of Ella and her twins because something's up. Like, something bad is happening there. I'm not going to tell you what, but it ain't good. And so Beckett goes home, well, to where she lives to help her out. Only he can't tell her that he's the same guy that she's been writing to for months, because right after Ryan passed away, he kind of stopped writing to her, so she's mad at him. So it's kind of, he's going there under false pretenses and lying about who he is, which is not smart. So yeah, you have that drama, and you think that's all it is, but there's a twist at the end that makes you bawl your eyes out, and I was not expecting it. So if you're gonna read this, expect to cry. Next we have His Secret Daughter by Melissa Weisner. I found, this was just a random Audible find, but it's about a woman who finds out that her husband was in a car accident. They were already splitting, kind of. They were separated. And she gets a call that he was in a car accident, and so she goes to the hospital, and she finds out that he was in a car with a woman and a 2-year-old girl. The woman is dead, and the little girl is alive. And she looks very similar to her husband. So, did he have an affair or did he not? And she kind of goes on a journey to find out who her husband actually is. And it's not quite what you think it is. But go along for the ride, because it's a real good ride. They also have a teenage daughter together, so there's that aspect. Next, we have The Secret Book in Scone Society by Ellery Adams. I read the first 2 books so far. I heard about this first through Meredith from the Currently Reading podcast, and then Lizzie Faye Loves Books talked about it, and then Keisha from A Book Like You recently read it. So this takes place in Miracle Springs, North Carolina. It's a place of healing. Strangers flock here, hoping the natural hot springs, 5-star cuisine, and a renowned spa can cure their ills. If none of that works, they often find their way to Miracle Books, where over a fresh-baked comfort scone from the Gingerbread House Bakery, they exchange their stories with owner Nora Pennington in return for a carefully chosen book. That's Nora's special talent, prescribing the perfect novel to ease a person's deepest pain and lighten their heaviest burden. I'm reading the description. And in the first one, before someone can get to her, he is murdered, so she feels the need to solve this murder, and that is how the Secret Book in Scone Society is formed. A group of damaged souls yearning to gain trust and earn redemption by helping others. To join the society, members must divulge their darkest secrets, the terrible truth that brought each of them to Miracle Springs in the first place. So it's all of these women forming this group and helping to solve murders. There is Amanda from Book Lover Amanda also, I think it was her, read this, or I don't know if she DNF'd it, but there was a scene she was not a fan of where one of the women uses her sexuality to get info out of someone. And was that her? I can't remember. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, I'm pretty sure that's the only time this happens, because I read book 2 and it hasn't happened since. But yeah, that happens in the first book. So if that bugs you, maybe don't read that. But I've enjoyed it so far. I can't wait to get to book 3. Next we have For the Love of Summer by Susan Mallory. I heard about this one through Chloe from Always Booked. It was one of her new releases. I hadn't read a Susan Mallory in a long time because most of them are romances with a lot of sex scenes, and I just was not into it. But this one was interesting. This one was about Erica and her teenage daughter, Summer. Erica split from Summer's dad, and Summer's dad is now with Allison, a much younger woman. And they have a baby together and another one on the way. And then suddenly Summer's dad is basically in prison. And Allison is kind of broke and needs somewhere to stay. And Summer pretty much guilts her mother into having them stay with them, because that's her brother and all of that. And so it's about these women coming together. You know. So, yeah, it was an interesting read because, you know, like, that's not a thing that you usually hear about. Stepmoms coming together without the husband there. The mom and the stepmom. Anyway. Then I have another author, Alison Ragsdale. I could not decide which book to put in as a favorite. I love them all so far. I can't remember where she's from, though. Alison Ragsdale. But she writes Jodi Picoult style books. And, well, sort of. And they all have kind of twisty endings. Some of them are to do with kids being ill or something tragic. But, yeah. I can't remember where she's from. If it's Scotland or... I'll try to find out, because I can't remember. But, oh well. But yeah, I would check her out, because all her books are really good. Then we have How to Age Disgracefully by Claire Pooley. Another Chloe rec. Well, from her list. I'm not even sure if she's read this. Maybe I shouldn't be calling some of these books recommendations. I just heard about them from her. But this one is hilarious and should be a comedy, like a movie. It's basically a senior citizen center, and a daycare center collide, and the senior citizens are insane. We have a kleptomaniac, con artist. They're all nuts, and they collide with a daycare center, and they kind of work together to save the senior center from closing. It is all very funny. And yeah, it's just hilarious. It's hard to describe fully. It's an experience you just have to have. And there's also a teenage father in this book. He's got one of his kids in the daycare. And I like that representation. So yeah. Then we have a sad one, The Hope Chest by Viola Shipman. This is Heirloom Book 2. I heard about this series from Tammy from Believe in Yourself. I can't remember if she read the first one or this one. Because the first one was The Charm Bracelet. I did not like it as much as this one. I think she read The Charm Bracelet. Who cares? But this one is about Maddie, who's diagnosed with ALS, and, well, you die eventually from that. Don, her husband, can't fully take care of her on his own, so he hires a caretaker who is, Rose, and Rose has a little girl named Jerry. They pretty much become part of the family, and it's their touching journey of becoming a family, as well as eventually her death, because it's going to happen, which is very sad, and you cry. But I still love this book, too. Next is another tearjerker, The Promise of Stardust by Priscilla Sibley. This one is about Matt and Elle. Elle falls off a ladder and like hits her head really hard and is in a coma on life support. And basically they're about to turn off the machines when they realize that she's pregnant. And Matt and his mother, I thought it was going to be her mother who got into the fight, but no, it's Matt and his mother get into it because his mother knew that Elle didn't want to live on life support. But Matt also knew how much she tried to have a baby, and he wanted to give her that chance to carry a baby. And so it becomes kind of this huge court battle of the right thing to do. And then it gets crazier because the people who are like pro-life against abortions think that Matt is on like their side, and they're like trying to support him. And he's like, I'm not trying to tell people not to have abortions. I just want the right to have my kid. In this one situation, that's what my wife wanted. My wife was never against abortion, so it becomes a whole circus. I won't tell you how it ends, but it's a good ending for what it was. Then we have another tearjerker. I have a lot of these. The Brilliant Life of Eudora Honeysett by Annie Lyons. This is about Eudora Honeysett. I'm going to read the description for this one because it's funny. Eudora Honeysett is done with this noisy, moronic world. All of it. She has witnessed the indignities and sufferings of old age and has lived a full life. At 85, she isn't going to leave things to chance. Her end will be on her own terms. With one call to a clinic in Switzerland, a plan is set in motion. Then she meets 10-year-old Rose Truidney, a whirling pint-sized rainbow of color and sparkling cheer. All Eudora wants is to be left alone to set her affairs in order. Instead, she finds herself embarking on a series of adventures with the irrepressible Rose and their affable neighbor, the recently widowed Stanley. Afternoon tea, shopping sprees, trips to the beach, birthday celebrations, pizza parties. While the trio of unlikely BFFs grow closer and anxiously await the arrival of Rose's new baby sister, Eudora is reminded of her own childhood, of losing her father during World War II, and the devastating impact it had on her entire family. In reflecting on her past, Eudora realizes she must come to terms with what lies ahead. But now that her joy for life has been rekindled, how can she possibly say goodbye? So, yeah, you can imagine where that goes. She wants to die, and in the end, she wants to live. Next, we have House of Glass by Sarah Pekkanen. This is another Chloe recommendation, and this time, this is one that Chloe actually read. On the outside, they were the golden family with the perfect life. On the inside, they built the perfect lie. A young nanny who plunged to her death, or was she pushed? A 9-year-old girl who collects sharp objects and refuses to speak. A lawyer whose job it is to uncover who in the family is a victim and who is a murderer. But how can you find out the truth when everyone here is lying? So, yeah. Everybody is kind of a suspect here, including the little kid who is uber creepy. And so you kind of want to know who did it. I think we're getting close to the end. We're hitting October. Next we have Guiding Emily by Barbara Hinsky. This is actually a series. I heard about this from M's Books Are Everywhere. I had my doubts because I've hated most books written about blind characters, but this is an exception. I loved it. This is about Emily, who is on her honeymoon with her husband Connor when she falls off a horse. She has a condition where her retinas detach really easily, and her mom tells her not to do anything dumb. But she does, and she loses her vision, and thus begins the rest of her life. It's called Guiding Emily because we also see the process of her getting a guide dog, and we have chapters from the guide dog's perspective as he's going through training to become her guide dog. So we kind of see them going through parallel journeys until they meet up. And the rest of the books kind of have them working together, and we have Garth's perspective and her perspective as things are happening. So yeah, if you like a story about a cute dog that doesn't die, this is it. Even if you're not interested in being educated about blindness. This series is funny, and also they go through real things, and she does it really well. So yeah. Then we have another sad one, The Last Days of Us by Carolyn Finnerty. This is about Sarah McIntyre. Her husband JP announces on Christmas Day that he is leaving her and their 2 children, Harry and Robin. He is basically having an affair. Nice man. And Sarah thinks it's the end of the world. But things get worse when 4-year-old Robin is diagnosed with an aggressive brain tumor, aka DIPG, aka something that is not curable, hence the title. And so we kind of see them battle things out as far as how to medically treat her, and yeah, it is a tearjerker. A big time tearjerker. Let's get to something happy now. Authentically Izzy by Pepper Basham. This is a surprise read for me. I had no interest in this, but it was on sale on Audible, and I was like, why not? It's $3. Let's go. So I decided to try it. Everybody and their mother has read this. Katie from Babe Racks and Ponytails, Book Lover Amanda, Lou from Kristen Faith and Fiction. So yeah. This is about Izzy Edgewood. She is a wannabe bookstore owner, quote queen, and Lord of the Rings nerd who has been waiting for Prince Charming to sweep her off her sneakered feet. But it's hard to meet people when you spend more time with fictional humans than real ones. I'm perfectly happy with that. I like my sneakered feet. Don't insult me. Which is why her pragmatist cousin Josephine decides to take Izzy's future into her own meddling hands and create an online dating profile for the hopeful romantic. To Izzy's shock and suspicion, Josie's plan works. Soon she's dialoguing with a hobbit-loving man named Brody, who lives in a small town an ocean away from her home in the Blue Ridge Mountains. But is her shared love of books, family, and correspondence enough to overcome Izzy's fear of flying and the literal distance between them? And is a long-distance relationship even worth considering when a local author has been frequenting the library where she works and is proving to be a perfectly fine gentleman? So yeah, this is epistolary. It's letters going back and forth. I actually, even once I bought this, I almost stopped because, like, the beginning was literally Josephine meddling, and I never warmed up to her. I hate her. And you know, not real hatred because this is book world, but I bookishly hate her. Like, she gets under my skin so bad. So, and to be fair, Izzy isn't a huge fan either, but, you know, they have their little makeup moment later, much to my disgust. But, Izzy calls her Josie because Josephine hates it and wants to be called Josephine. But I've decided to call her Jojo from now on because it is awful and she would hate it even more. So now we have that out of the way. I really thought I was going to hate this book, but I did not. I fell in love with Izzy and Brody's banter, and I wanted them to get together and for her to dump that author and go to Skimar, and it was just really fun. The audio was really good. I loved Penelope and Luke. They're her other cousins, JoJo's siblings, who are the subjects of the next 2 books, which I cannot wait to get to. But yeah, I really, thought I was going to hate this, and I did not. I loved it. I will endure JoJo for the sake of the rest of the series. Next, we have The Wings of Poppy Pendleton by Melody Dobson. I heard about this from Lou from Kristen Faith and Fiction. She had it on her new releases video from 2023. I read it during Historathon because it was something I hadn't read. 1907. On the eve of her 5th birthday, Poppy Pendleton is tucked safely in her bed, listening to her parents entertain New York's Gilded Society in their Thousand Islands castle. The next morning, she is gone, and her father is found dead in his smoking room. 1992. Though Chloe Riddell lives in the shadows of Poppy's castle, now in ruins, she has little interest in the mystery that still captivates tourists and locals alike. She's focused on preserving the island she inherited from her grandparents and reviving their vintage candy shop. Until the day a girl named Emma shows up on Chloe's doorstep with few possessions save a tattered scrapbook that connects her to the Pendleton family. When a reporter arrives at Chloe's store asking questions about her grandfather, Chloe decides to help him dig into a past she thought best left buried. So this is kind of similar to The Lake House by Kate Morton, except with a castle. And with God as part of it, too. This is Christian fiction with actual faith in it. So there is mentions of praying and stuff. Just to let you know in case you care. So, yeah. Then we have a romance. Another romance. Wild. Head in the Clouds by Karen Wittenmeyer. I heard about this from Katie from Paperbacks and Ponytails, and I expected to like it, but I did not expect to love it as much as I did. So you have Adelaide Proctor, is basically kind of a dreamer. She wants her Prince Charming. So she's like always hunting for the next man. And when her latest manhunt goes awry, she interviews for a governess position on a Texas sheep ranch and vows to ditch romance forever. And so she goes to work for Gideon Westcott, who has just recently adopted a little girl named Isabella. And Isabella's mute since her mother passed away. And they both have to work together to protect Isabella from her evil uncle who has come to claim her, you know, because he's actually related to her, unlike her new dad. Honestly, though, I love this book because I loved, what's his name? Gideon so much. Not even so much, what's her name? I'm not remembering names right now. Adelaide. Addie. I liked her fine, but it was all about Gideon. I mean, I loved the way that he was with Bella. He called her Bella Mine, and it was so sweet. Ew. I don't like my voice going squeaky that way. But, yeah, I loved his relationship with her. So, that just made this book for me. So, and I love any book where you're trying to save a kid. Next, we have another surprise. The Sisters of Seaview by Julie Klassen. I've read so far the first 2 books. I'm currently reading the 3rd one. Slowly, because I want to savor this. But I genuinely did not think I would like this. I've been hearing about it for months. And I thought I would hate this. This is about when their father's death leaves them impoverished. Sarah Summers, she convinces her sisters to open their seaside home to guests to provide for their mother who is sick. No one's really a huge fan of this because they're like, they were once loaded and now they're resorting to having guests. The scandal. And in the description, it says that, instead of the elderly invalids they expected, they find themselves hosting eligible gentlemen. So I was thinking this was like the British version of The Bachelor, where everybody's like fighting over these girls, and because that's kind of what the description makes it sound like. But it's not all like eligible men that are there. There's a married couple, there's a single dad with a daughter. Like, it's more than just about them finding a man, which is what I thought it was. So I was like, honestly, I'm not exaggerating when I said that I was thoroughly disgusted by the idea of like a manhunting inn. I was like, Julie Klassen, what have you done? And it wasn't like that at all. And I was genuinely happy for the romances that happened. And I cannot wait to see what happens in the third one. This is kind of like a combination of Jane Austen because of the time period and Little Women because of the four sisters or the sisters and their mother and all of that. I loved both books so far. And yeah, it's definitely got more substance than I thought it would. So yeah, I cannot believe that I almost dumped this. Next, we have The Christmas Tree Farm. We're finally in December. Christmas Tree Farm series by Jacqueline Frost. The first one is 12 Slaves of Christmas. I read the whole series in December. Holly White is our protagonist. The first one starts with her wedding being canceled, her Christmas Eve wedding. She's dumped almost at the altar, and she goes home to Mistletoe, Maine, where she lives at Reindeer Games, her parents' Christmas tree farm. And right when she gets there and is thinking of having some R&R and licking her wounds, a murder happens that points to her family, and we meet the sheriff, and hijinks and investigating ensues, and there's a romance between her and the sheriff. And yeah, I love the series, all of them. I love the Christmas vibes. I love the games that are played. I mean, they have blindfolded sledding and gingerbread house making. What more can you ask for? So yeah, there's that. Two more, I think. Then we have The Last Christmas in Paris by Hazel Gaynor and Holly Webb. I heard about this one from a million people because of Epistolary January coming up and just the Christmas season in general. Gloria Z. Thompson, Cheryl from the Candlebook Library, and from In Search of Wonder, and I can't remember anyone else. Those are the ones I wrote down. But this spans 4 Christmases, 1914 through 1918. But this is not really a Christmas book. It's just called that. We just go through 4 Christmases. But this is an epistolary novel. It starts in 1914, and Evie Elliott is watching her brother Will and his best friend Thomas go off to war. And it's kind of the letters that she wrote to, well, her and Thomas, because they're like the main love interest, or, you know, the ones that really write each other. And she does write to other people, though. That's why I didn't want to say it was just them. But it is definitely a romantic story that makes you cry. So I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. Unlike the other book that I read, Christmas with the Queen, which is the next book that those two wrote together, Hazel Gaynor and Heather Webb. So, yeah. Next we have The Christmas You Found Me by Sarah Morgenthaler. I heard about this on the Currently Reading podcast. This is wild, and you have to suspend your disbelief a little bit, but it's a ride. So this is about Sienna Naples' family. Oh, I was sorry. I don't know why I said family, because I'm reading the description, but I wasn't trying to. Sienna Naples just had a divorce, and on the day the divorce is finalized, her friend Jess decides to make like a joking ad. She basically makes an ad as a joke, saying that Sienna is hiring a husband to replace the one that she just dumped. And somebody desperate answers the ad. His name is Guy Maples. I don't know why they gave her the last name Maple and his Maple. But, yeah. They actually bring it up when well, okay. Let me get back to that. So, Guy answers the ad because he needs good health insurance for his 4-year-old little girl, Emma, who has, like, in the last stages of kidney failure and needs a transplant. And he doesn't have good insurance. They're down on their luck. And so he wants to marry someone with good insurance. And then they get divorced later. So this ad is perfect for him. And, you know, Sienna reluctantly agrees to this marriage of convenience. And it leads to more. So back to the Naples Maple thing. They actually do bring it up. Because he asks her, do you want to change your last name? And she goes, can we hyphenate it? Because, you know, she's like against the patriarchy. And he goes, I mean, sure, if you want to be Sienna Naples Maple. That's great. Well, we can totally hyphenate it. But yeah, anyway, the book itself is really good. I mean, it's about a sick kid, so you cry. Who else read this? Somebody just recently. Storm from Storm Reads read it and liked it as well. So yeah. But yeah, that was an unexpected book I wasn't expecting. It's just part of a series. I forget what it's called already. So I don't know if there's going to be a book next year. But yeah. And last but not least is another book I was not expecting to like. Catching Christmas by Terry Blackstock. I heard about this one from everybody, honestly. So we have Sydney Batson. She's a lawyer. And she's about to lose her job, so she has to be a workaholic. And when her grandmother gets super sick, she just puts her in a... She has an arrangement for a cab to get her to take her to the doctor. And the driver is Finn Parrish. And he ends up kind of having to take care of this wheelchair-bound lady, Callie, Sydney's grandmother, who doesn't remember her own name after half a second, and she forgets to pay him, but he can't turn her away either. He's kind of stuck with her, essentially, being her chauffeur. It was unintentional, but it happens, and she basically has him driving around everywhere for her. And in the description, it says that she's is trying to matchmake her daughter with people. And so I actually thought I wouldn't like her, but she's hilarious. I usually can't stand a matchmaker, and I mean, not that I think that's great anyway, but she it really was not about matchmaking. That was a little bit of it on the side, she would make him take her to places where she would ask them if they would hang out with her granddaughter. But a lot of it was just her and Finn's relationship and how he grew closer to her for having to drive her around. We barely even saw Sydney. And yeah, there was a romance toward the end, but because it wasn't the main focus of the story, I didn't mind it so much. It was more funny, the things that this old lady said, because she kept forgetting things, and just the fact that he was grumpily helping her. It was a really great read. I was not expecting to enjoy it so much. So yeah, those are all of my favorite reads for this past year in the order in which I read them. Let's hope this isn't too long. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys in my next video. Bye.
Stop recording video.